Wide receiver Julio Jones has a new team. Now, he's bounced around over the last couple of years. He was with Atlanta forever. And then last year changed uniforms, and now he's changing uniforms again. Julio Jones agreeing to a 1-year deal with who? The Buccaneers. And the Hall of Fame resume secured in Atlanta, and then he moved on to Tennessee. That was a hot mess. His career falling into a ditch on the side of the road in recent seasons. But as always the case when a big-name player changes teams, there is a delayed reaction. There's a dopamine hit that takes place where people are, oh, he was really good. And they overlook the normal, the new normal, which is taking place. So optimism abounds in Tampa. And some of the gung-ho reports here going as far to say, that Julio Jones is just what the doctor ordered for Tom Brady. The Buccaneers now, this team is set up again, and the key addition, the last-second addition, Julio Jones. All right, so let us discuss the question. You going to go true or false? Julio Jones, the missing piece for Tom Brady. All right, so this is obviously what's known as a canard. It's false, 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 false. You don't need me to tell you that. It's a big, giant, juicy canard. I've got Clyde Frazier, Auto Club, and Skinny Dip. And we're going to combine all of these things together, and we're going to get together, and we're going to make a turkey sandwich. Now, the turkey sandwich is not the king of the sandwich, but it's a solid sandwich, and it can go with a lot of different things. So we're making the turkey sandwich. So, we've got the fact that Julio Jones, when you reach legendary status and you've won a lot of people's fantasy football league titles over the years, that gives you a level of cachet. But let's keep things real here. Julio has a better chance of starring in the next Just for Men commercial than he does popping up in a Pro Bowl or certainly an all-pro team. He needs to get that mustache, the beard brush in color gel there. And Walt Frazier, Clyde Frazier, no play for Mr. Gray, right? The Buccaneers are, what they're doing now is they're window shopping at the flea market of the NFL, which is not a good sign, right? It's not a good sign. Kyle Rudolph, the tight end, who hasn't had a very productive season in a number of years, played a long time in Minnesota. He's now in Tampa. That was a last-minute pickup after Rob Gronkowski stepped away, at least for the beginning of the season. And so yet again, the Buccaneers are at the flea market, and they decided to buy an antique. And they're like, well, maybe we can polish it up. But Julio is not the missing puzzle piece. If anything, this would fall into the category of eyewash for the Buccaneers. All right, page 2. So how much fuel does Julio Jones have left in the tank? Now, if I haven't made this clearly obvious to you, let me go a little further here. So I'm looking at the dash light on the dashboard. There's a light flashing on the dashboard there. It's pulsating on the team bus, and it appears to be a call the Auto Club situation. That you need to contact the Auto Club, get a tow truck out, because you got a problem. Now, last season, if you flash back a year ago in the Wayback Machine, and we had a conversation, you and I, behind the bully pulpit here at Fox Sports Radio in the cover of darkness overnight. And last year about this time, there was a lot of radio chatter about how Julio Jones was set for a bounce-back season. Instead, it was a backfire season, and he fell back into the Tennessee swamp, is what he did, playing in the shadow of A.J. Brown. Everything was set up. You got A.J. Brown on one side. You have a dynamic, top-notch running game with Derrick Henry. And Julio Jones went out there and was a burger. He was not a cheeseburger. He was a turd burger for the Titans. How bad was he? I'm glad you asked. Jones was limited to 10 games, so he did not play in 7 of the 17 games, limited to just 10 games because of various injuries that popped up. That's been the norm in recent years as he's gotten older, and that's normal in football. To receivers who get a lot of reps, they get hurt. But he also had a career-low season in receptions, in receiving yards, and just 1 touchdown reception for a team that plays football in Nashville, Tennessee. That was it. And that's the second straight season now that Julio Jones has been limited. He's been spending a lot of time in the injury tent. He appeared in just 9 games with the Falcons in 2020. So the recent body of work, this is a part-time employee. This is not a full-time employee. This is a seasonal employee, Julio Jones. If you want to see his best days, do not look at him play in Tampa. You can watch some old video clips. Go back and watch the sizzle reel that's online. That vintage of Julio Jones is not walking back through those doors, not coming back. His receptions, yards, touchdowns, targets are all down for 3 consecutive seasons. It's not just the last 2. His last year in Atlanta, you go from there, that point forward, down, 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 falling down a giant rabbit hole. All right, last word here. So why Tampa? Why did Julio Jones pick the Bucs? There's a phrase that applies here: beggars cannot be choosers. It's not like the NFL was knocking on the door of Julio Jones saying, hey, we want to sign you. In fact, the fact that he signed as training camp is beginning is what's known as a dead giveaway. It's a dead giveaway that nobody was really all that interested. Despite the insiders repeating gibberish that the Green Bay Packers were hot and heavy for Julio Jones and some other teams, reality is, come on, that's not the case. He would have signed months ago if there were a bunch of teams interested. He wouldn't have waited till the very last minute there. And he picked Tampa rather than Green Bay because he wants to skinny dip in the fountain of youth. Go to the old day spa there. And Tom Brady regularly is a text buddy with Ponce de Leon. Very good friends. And they've been buddies. Tom's actually a lizard person. He's been around since the 1500s, so Brady and Ponce de Leon go way back. Hundreds of years. And Julio Jones wants to ride the coattails of Tom Brady and see if he can sneak in there and get some kind of championship. It's really the Jiminy Cricket type of story, right? When you wish upon a star, it makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you, unless that's not exactly the case. But if you take a peek, just a little peek over there at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers depth chart. And you're like, okay, so Julio Jones has been around a while and all that, and he hadn't played much recently. He's been a part-time player. Now he slides on in to Tampa Bay. So where does he fit in? Is he a starting receiver for the Buccaneers? Does he immediately start? Some people say yes. You've got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, who's dinged up. Is Julio Jones the third receiver? Is he a starting receiver right away? And you look at that depth chart, and there's other names you've heard of. If you follow the NFL, Russell Gage is there, Brashad Perriman among the depth chart for the Buccaneers. It's really the top 2. The top 2, and then after that, not a lot there. At least not a lot of name brand value for the Buccaneers.